Thank you for coming out on this rainy day, by the way. I appreciate you guys' faithfulness. And we're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off last week, talking about heaven, the capital city of heaven, how big it is, the new earth, and just a few little things to start out with that we didn't cover, we mentioned last week, but we did mention that the new capital city that Jesus is preparing a place for us in is coming to the earth, from the third heaven to the earth. And we mentioned there's three heavens, where the sky is, where the stars are, and beyond that, both multidimensionally and in circumference is the third heaven, where God was when He created the first two heavens. But in the third heaven, there's a capital city that's been there for a long time. It's being remodeled. The devil actually fell from the capital city. That's where he first sinned with pride and defiled part of heaven, having to take 1/3 of the angels and cast them to the earth. And that's the reason why we have demonic forces on the earth today. They're fallen angels. And they're influencing our society, as we can see all around us. But at this time, all those things will be history. There'll be none of that, no evidence of that. They'll all be in the lake of fire at this time, which is called the second death, the graveyard in Michigan. Michigan, that's where I'm from, so the graveyard in heaven. And I'm in Fort Lauderdale now, which I prefer, being it's February. And nevertheless, the city's size is mentioned in the New Testament, or in Revelations of the New Testament, and it's in our numbers in miles. It's 1,400 to 1,500 miles square. It's as tall as it is wide as it is deep. There's no mention of the ceiling, and it's often mentioned as shaped like a mountain or as a mountain, Mount Zion. Therefore, I used to think it was a cube, but the shape I think is actually more of a pyramid. So if you picture a pyramid, that would be more of the shape of the heaven. It's as tall as it is wide as it is deep. And that's a pretty large city, and it has 12 floors. Each floor has more, no doubt, than 100 miles above it. It would be the next floor. They have a 1,400 mile city with 12 floors. The top floor would be even higher at that rate, depending on how thick the floors were. But nevertheless, you got plenty of room for skies, mountains, since our sky is only 62 miles above sea level. And that's outer space, and the end of our sky, where outer space actually starts. And so you have plenty of space for mountains, clouds, and the environment of different things. On each floor has one gate to get in and out of a walled city, and the gate's never closed. And to give you an idea of the size, it's compared to our moon. Our moon is roughly 2,150 miles across, where the city is 1,500 miles across. So the city is 3/4 the size of the moon. And the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. But at times, it looks like the same size, because the sun is also 400 times further away than the moon. So if the city would come towards the earth, and we point out that's too large, and for multiple reasons, it doesn't sit on the earth. It hangs out above the earth like a satellite city, sort of like the moon does now. And if the city stopped and orbited the earth, roughly 1,000 miles above the earth, no, 100,000 miles, above the earth, it would look larger than the moon or the sun right now. So 100,000 miles away, that's how big the city would look. Larger than, it would be like the big moon. So the moon orbits 25,000 miles to 252,000 miles away from the earth. So you do the math, you see that orbit and how big it is. So 100,000 is less than half, it's twice as close as the moon. But the city's 3/4 big as the moon. So it gives you some perspective of where and how the city will be located above the earth. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the verses here. And we're going to look at first Revelations 21, 23 through 25. So let's go there.
It is city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor into it. And the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day. There shall be no night there.
Okay. So there's no night in the city. It's illuminated. There's no shadows in the city. It's illuminated with the glory of God. No dark alleys in the city. It's 24 hours a day. It's a city that never sleeps. There's no night there. So in this city, it sort of takes the place of the sun in reality as a light that never goes out. Now the sun will eventually go out, but this city will never go out. It's eternal. It actually lights the earth from its position up here. Inside of the city, it's always illuminated. It's always glowing with multiple colors of light because there's plenty of treasures sparkling, all kinds of things. So it's a remarkable place to visit, and you can see it 100,000 miles away, and it actually shines on the earth. And we see this, and let's start turning to Isaiah 66, 22 and 23. And we see it in this verse that it lighteth the earth. So it actually takes the place of the sun. But and it has no night there, but there is night on earth. I was wondering if there could be. I figured there should be and could be, probably. And then I found this verse, and it actually states the earth is conditioned at this time. And it's an interesting and insightful verse, Isaiah 66, verses 22 and 23. And this is talking about the earth, people on the earth at this time. It's a new earth. So this is the same time we're talking about the city coming to the earth. So this is the situation on earth. We know the situation in the city is always illuminated. There's never a night there. So Isaiah 66, 22 and 23. Go ahead and read that.
As the new heavens and the new earth as the new heavens and the new earth that I made will endure before me, declares the Lord. So will your name and descendants endure. From one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, all mankind will come and bow down before me, saith the Lord.
Okay, interesting thing here is it says one new moon to another. So new moons are basically at night. So it does show that not only is there night on the earth, because the daytime is lit up part of the earth just like it is today by the sun, only then it'll be by the new city, Jerusalem, the capital city of heaven, will light up the earth, as the previous verse stated. But and stated in many places, several places. But here, the other side of the earth is darker because of the eclipsing situation. And the new moon is when you got, I believe, a full moon. And so the moon is there also. There's a new moon that's made, with a new earth, and will light up the night, as it says in Genesis. So there's a reflection going on. And the moon basically reflects the light of the sun. And so here they're gathering, and they have nights, they have new moons, they're marking days of the week, as well as seasons. And so the earth will have much of the same as what we know now, but majorly glorified and purified. It does say that mankind will be there. We're going to get into that later. They'll be completely different than they are now, but in some ways they'll be similar. We're going to get into those things later. They will be glorified, and we are being glorified even before this in heaven during the judgment seat of Christ and the wedding feast of the Lamb. And there's actually two species mentioned, and we'll get into more of that later. And we're children of God. We live in the city. Jesus is preparing a place for us. We're going to get into that. But there are people living on earth, and they are a different type of people. We'll get into proof of that from the Bible. So we're going to look at first our place. And let's look at John 14:2. Capital city. John 14:2.
In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you. And I will go and prepare a place for you. And I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am.
Okay, so that's a New International Version. You got King James Version handy, correct? And we're going to read that also. I like the way the King James puts this much better, because the difference is, and it's not an incorrect translation difference, it's just an incorrect concept difference. It says, in my Father's house are many rooms, and God's preparing us a room in his house. To me, that puts me in the mind of a commune, where everybody's living in the same house, each got a room, and everybody's hanging out there. And it's socialism in a sense that everybody's in the Father's house and they got their rooms and stuff. But that's really not the picture of the kingdom at all. God often, and we're going to get into illustrating some of that points out that his place is a kingdom. This is a city. It's the Father's house is a city. It's not a building. And the Father's house is not just rooms. There's huge, as we've already looked at the city, vast landscapes. And in these landscapes has plenty of room for mansions. And that's why I like the King James Version. It doesn't use rooms, it uses mansions. Now imagine me looking forward to a room in heaven. That's nice. A mansion in heaven? Whoa, that's real nice. And that's what the Bible illustrates throughout from cover to cover. This is a kingdom. Has multiple mansions. The King of Kings has his place in the mansion. Actually, the Father's throne is in the top floor of this multiple layered city where the throne is and stuff. But we have mansions God's preparing for us. It means we have ownership of a place that we can call our own, not just a room where it really is never yours. It's always somebody else's room that you're sharing. It's always a concept if you're in somebody else's house and you're sharing a room. They may say, this is your room, but is it really your room? Where am I going to keep my horse? Outside? Okay, it's outside the Father's house. It's not my house. So it's all the concepts that are pertaining to rooms that are incorrect. The correct concepts are kingdoms, which is also a proper translation. It's just a bigger picture of the reality of what God's preparing for us. And the city has plenty of room for a mansion for everybody. It's a free gift. We're going to get into that. But the fact is, your mansion is special, prepared for you. Uniquely, the architecture is unique to what you enjoy. Everybody doesn't have a cookie cutter situation. Everybody's got a personal mansion prepared for you, and every one is glorious. And that's a better concept. And let's go ahead and read that in King James. It gives us a better concept and picture of what's going on here.
In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto me, that where I am, ye may be also.
So that's really the better concept. And we each have our own personal mansion prepared and given to us as a gift. And it's in a kingdom. And our only kingdom that really is representative of any kingdom on earth left is really England. And we see the king and queen. The queen recently died, but nevertheless, and the king has been replaced by her son. But nevertheless, they have for history, many, many hundreds of years, goes back to where they have their castle, and the king has more than one castle, one place where he hangs out and stuff. So there's multiple castles in a kingdom. Now in this case, there's a king of kings, and there's other kings under the king of kings, and other people, and everybody has a place that would be considered a mansion compared to the best place we have now. So basically, the kingdom is mentioned in Matthew 5. Let's take a look at that. And how Jesus over and over illustrates and refers to his kingdom. And so a kingdom really is related more to mansions than a house with rooms. And it's a glorious kingdom, eternal kingdom. It's Matthew 5:3. We're going to look at verse 3 first. We're going to read 4 verses in Matthew 5. But they're all in the same chapter, but over and over emphasizing this kingdom concept. Let's look at verse 3 first.
God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him. The kingdom of heaven is theirs.
And verse 10.
God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs.
The kingdom of heaven, verse 19.
Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven.
So there's status in the kingdom of heaven. There's greater, there's lesser. Not everybody's on the same schedule or level like you would have in socialism. The government tries to make everybody no rich, no poor. Everybody's basically the same. That's not the case in the kingdom of heaven. There's people that have more, people have less, people have basically favored because of what they've done. And so therefore they have greater glory, greater blessings, and those that basically rejected God and lived as a Christian, born again, but never reflected that, never showed anybody, never really lived out that concept of who they are reality-wise. But they'll still be there. They'll still have a mansion. But they won't have the treasures we're going to get into in a minute. But let's look at verse 20 to conclude that. These are all the same verse. Go ahead.
I have a question, because if that's the case, because you know, like here on earth, I don't know about you all, but a lot of times like I'm jealous of people who have
More?
than I have.
Sure.
So won't that maybe
Promote
lead
jealousy?
for jealousy and for
After-
sin then in heaven?
Well, that's what we. Any other questions? That would be resolved at the judgment seat of Christ. What happens there is most of that jealousy and everything is promoted by our old nature. Our old nature is self-centered. And our old nature at the judgment seat of Christ creates all the problems in the world today, all the problems in our personal life, and all the bad attitudes. So it's going to be replaced by the new nature. The new nature is replaced now. That's what makes us born again. And at the judgment seat of Christ, the old nature is removed, leaving only the new nature, making us a child of God, filling our heart with what's true and what's good. The first fruit of the new nature is love. And it's peace, love, joy, and it does not envy. You read the love chapter and it says it does not envy. So it won't be according to our nature at that time that we'll be prone to that. That's an old nature type of attitude first. Second is we'll realize, you know what, they earned that. I could have had that, but they earned that. And I'm going to be happy with the fact that I got a mansion in spite of how badly I lived. My mansion is glorious. So I'm going to be happy that I'm there in this perfect environment with a mansion that is undescribable almost in comparison to what I ever had on earth. So I'm going to have plenty of blessings. And I'm going to have opportunities to do things and forevermore. But on another sense, they are going to have more talent and ability than I would have. Because one of the blessings or rewards is the ability to serve. So they're going to have a greater capacity to serve, and I'll be the one they're going to be serving. So we're going to get into that in a few classes in the future, what it's going to be like to be in this society. But the greatest among them will not only have the most, but be the greatest servant, Jesus being the greatest of great. And we're not going to be jealous of Jesus. He's got everything. But he's also serving us in such a way that we're going to love and appreciate him and know that he deserved what he got. And we could have had more, but we're going to move on from where we are, which is a glorious place that we'll be grateful for. And they'll be serving the younger, in a sense, will be less mature, less abilities. But they'll be serving us, not reigning over us like people do today. one reason people are jealous is because they brag. And they flaunt things. And it stirs up that old nature saying, I got more than you, I'm better than you, and all this kind of stuff. None of that would be happening in heaven. It would be an idea that I have more capacity, just like I've earned my driver's license. I can drive. You didn't earn your driver's license, you can't drive. Well, maybe you're jealous that I could drive, but in another sense, that comes from the old nature again. But in heaven, it'd be like, I'm glad you can drive, because can you take me over here? And we'll be chauffeuring them around as a servant, helping those that have less capacity to move around into places where they couldn't get otherwise. So it'd be like a parent-child situation more than anything else, where parents have more, they provide more, they do more for us. But as children, instead of being jealous of our parents, we'll be glad to have that, so they actually can help us. And we can enjoy benefits of their love towards us, because everybody's going to love each other totally. We're going to love them, they're going to love us, and all those envious ideas are going to be washed away with the old nature, as well as the environment, that there's not going to be any flaunting and stuff like that. It's going to be a servant is going to be the greatest leader with the most. And the youngest, or least as it says here, having the less. But still, they're going to be there, and they're going to realize, you know what? This is a great place, and I'm glad for the provisions that are given to me. And I can move on from here. And that's just the way it is. There's going to be people that have much more than any of us in heaven. And that's kind of what John and James got into. They, by using their earthly attitudes, and we're going to get into them in a few classes, tried to get over top of the other disciples, which created an envy situation and conflicts. All that's going to be resolved before we get to heaven. People are going to realize, you know what? These kind of attitudes pertain to this life and now. And they have nothing to do with a new heaven and a new earth. And it's just going to be a thing where we don't feel like that anymore. Even though we realize, well, we don't have as much. But I'm sure that throughout eternity, because of the capacity God has for creating things and growing things, that we can grow from where we are. Just that they're going to have a leg up on us, no matter what, forevermore. They're going to be able to multiply more, and that's illustrated in the Bible. The more you have, the more you can multiply. The less you have, the less you multiply. But you can still add to and multiply from where you're at. There's people right now that have a lot more than me, but I still appreciate what I got. And I appreciate our home. We've been talking about that. God's really blessed us with our home. And it's not the most expensive house. That's why it raised greatly in value now. From when we bought it 36 years ago, 36 years we've lived there. It's an answer to a prayer. God's fingerprints are all over that when we got that. We don't have time to get into that now, but the thing is that that's the attitude we'll have. Sure, there's people with more rich houses, but we wouldn't trade them. We enjoy our house and the gift God's given to us. So let's go ahead and take a look at 1 Peter 1. Does that answer that question clearly?
Yes, so then actually our nature will be pure like how in the very beginning with Adam and Eve.
Even better than that, because it's going to be the divine nature. They had a pure human nature. And the divine nature is even more powerful and a greater capacity to love and enjoy things and greater capacity to be like God. And we see God as, He has everything. He's a great provider. And we'll have a capacity to actually enjoy our great, we'll be able to actually be like part of God's family in producing, creating, doing different things, and enjoying those things, enjoying the fruit of our labor.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to look at 1 Peter 1:4. Any other questions on that?
When we leave here, our spirit and soul leaves this body. Do we take the same way we look now and transform back to another being?
Well, that's a good point, and we're going to get into that. Maybe at the end of this class, if we have time, probably going to end up being next week, because we're spending quite a bit of time right here, and we're almost out of time already. So, but that's a good point, and the Bible says we'll be transformed. So, and we're going to be perfected. So, I looked a lot of different ways in my life. I used to look a lot better than I do now, when I was younger, and had hair and everything, and so flowing blue locks and everything. So, I'm believing that I'll look more like that than this deteriorated self that I've become, because we're perfected. But there's going to be a recognition to us. We're going to be the best version of ourself we've ever been. As far as our bodies go, they're going to be completely retransformed into something that's immortal. But yet they're going to be a body. And so we're going to have imperfections removed. So we're going to have a perfect body. And but we'll be recognizable by others. So there's something about us that we'll take from our body and have similarities to where somebody could say, oh yeah, you've changed so much, but I recognize you. And maybe it's just our eyes or whatever the case is. But the fact is, we'll have a simulation of who he was, but in every form it'll be perfected with no defects. And we will like better who we are then than we've ever liked who we are now. Because we've never been perfect in this life. We've always had something we didn't like about ourselves. But then we'll be perfected, and it's forevermore. And so yeah, we'll have a new body, but it will be a perfect body. And we'll be recognizable to others. Now, I've never seen King David, but somehow I'm going to recognize him. So it's going to go beyond just eye recognition. But once we see him, we're going to recognize that's who they are, stuff like that. So I looking forward to that. And we'll see what all transpires, but it's going to be a positive thing for sure, because it's going to be perfect. Let's take a look at 1 Peter 1:4.
And into the inheritance that can never be perished, spoiled or fade, kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time.
Okay, the key word here that they use as well in the New International is an inheritance. It's an inheritance given. God went to, Jesus is preparing a place for us. It's part of our inheritance. We have an inheritance because we're part of the family of God. I get an inheritance because I'm part of the family of God, not because I've earned it. It's a gift that basically we have, that Jesus is providing for us. It's our mansion. We can't earn our mansion. Jesus chooses where we're going to have our mansion, and that we have a mansion. Even the poorest person in heaven that has basically nothing, the least in heaven, they're going to have a mansion, and they're going to like it. There's no shacks in heaven, no dark alleys, no bad neighborhoods. It's all in there as perfect, beautiful mansions. That's a gift. That's our inheritance in the glorious capital city. Forevermore. We'll have our life there. We're going to look at what that's going to be like in there, what it looks like inside the city. But that's, for one, given. It's not the situation where God's building our mansion by what we send up. I've heard the story saying that God builds the mansion, but we send up the building materials. And I used to think about that when I was younger and heard that, and I thought, well, that makes sense, yeah. How many materials am I sending up? I want to send up something, a few things at least. So I thought about, well, our mansion's based on our works, what we send up to God. If I don't send him up anything, I'm going to have a very small mansion made out of a twig. And that's not going to be really much of a mansion. So that's the concept there, though. But that's not reality. That's inconsistent with the Bible. God's given us this inheritance. He's given us life and a place in the city by his own mercy, by the new covenant. And if we receive the divine nature, the Holy Spirit, that's actually the Spirit of Jesus that comes to dwell within our heart. If we receive that, we become born again into the family of God. And because we are in the family of God, we get a mansion. God wouldn't give one of his kids a twig and say, go live on that twig. He's going to, because of who he is and his city, want to reflect every single person's place in the best possible form. Not only for those visiting, but because he loves every one of his children. So out of his love, he provides that person a beautiful mansion as a free gift. That's our inheritance by becoming his child. We didn't earn it. We don't deserve it. Even the best of us don't deserve the mansion we have in heaven. So the worst or the best doesn't matter. God's preparing something beautiful for every single person. Has nothing to do with what we send up. But there is something to what we send up, and we see that in Matthew 6:20. So let's turn to Matthew 6:20. This is where our good works comes in, plainly illustrated and consistent with the whole Bible. Now, heaven being a free gift that we don't earn or deserve, and our place in heaven that Jesus says he's preparing for us, particularly, especially, and is doing that even now, is a gift, part of our inheritance. We can't earn it, don't deserve it, and can't contribute to it. It's all on, and we're going to see that later on when we see the argument between James and John and his other disciples. They're trying to get a better mansion, better placement, better neighborhood. And God's saying there, it's not yours to change, and it's already been prescribed by his decisions. So our place, our neighborhood, he's given that to us, and we're going to enjoy it. Every single place is great. But there's something we can do once we have a free mansion as our inheritance, once we're born again. Let's read this, Matthew 6:20.
But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal.
Okay, so we can let treasures in our mansion. So I can have the most beautiful mansion in the best neighborhood and be the poorest person in heaven. As soon as you open my door, it'll reflect the fact that, I don't have very many treasures. I don't have a seat to sit on yet in my place. But eventually, I hope to earn a seat or get a seat, or maybe somebody give me a seat, and give me something, for furnishings in my mansion, because that's all earned. The horse we talked about that we ride back with Jesus to the millennium is earned. It's not a free gift to get a horse. Do we have a stable, a place to put our horse in the back of our mansion? That's all earned stuff. We earn rewards in heaven. We earn vehicles in heaven. We earn abilities in our body in heaven that are concepts that things that we can be able to do, abilities, the way that we can serve, the way that we can rule as a king under the King of Kings. It's illustrated several times in the Bible that we can have multiple influential positions over top of different places, cities as it's referred to, that are outside of the capital city. There's other cities where we are basically the governor of the city, or the king of the city, and ruling in a sense, but there's regular kings under us, but we have ability as one of the children of God to manage and make sure everything is fine there. It's different things that happen, but we have to earn those things. But it has nothing to do with our mansion. That's a free gift. Our rewards and abilities, our vehicles, the stuff that's in our mansion, the treasures are forevermore, and we're going to appreciate those things. But they're all earned. If we have less treasures, that's simply because we did less, followed God less. I can't imitate somebody else. I have to do what God wants me to do. So he doesn't want us to be puppets, just trying to imitate Billy Graham, there we go. He's one of them I like to go to as a great evangelist, well known, influenced many presidents and stuff. He wasn't perfect, but no doubt he's got a lot of rewards in heaven. But if I just try to go and try to illustrate or imitate Billy Graham, that's not me. That's not my calling. I'd fall short. He wants me to be me. He wants you to be you. And we each have a different responsibility, a different sphere of influence. And walking with God is an individual thing. And he's going to want us to allow him to flow through us with love towards whatever environment we're working with. So that's how we earn our treasures. And so that's something we can do in this life and we'll be rewarded for. That's what makes it a kingdom, not a commune. So we have treasures in our kingdom that are personally ours, given to us forevermore. And they are something to be desired. We're going to go ahead, I think, and close there. So we're pretty close out of time. And we're going to look at, and we're going to change into looking at, a closer look at inside the city, what it's going to be like. Now we're going to look at the divided streets, the tree of life, the river that flows throughout the city, the throne room in the city, and the different things that's described in the Bible It's very interesting, I think, to kind of gives a little bit of picture of what it's like. But we know that the city glows, the walls are crystal clear, reflecting all the different things that are within the city. And inside the city is like a garden. It's like a garden with many treasures, just sparkling. But it also has trees in many places. It has divided streets with trees in the middle. And it's the tree of life that bears different kinds of fruit. So we're going to look at that next week, closer look at what's inside the city, where our mansion is located. And we're going to move on from there to look at all the different aspects of what it's going to be like in heaven. So we'll go ahead and close in prayer. And so any questions regarding that thus far? Okay. Well, dear Father, we do thank you for this day. Thank you for your word, your truth, and the destiny that you provided for us. In the mansion you provided for us. And help us to earn treasures that we'll be able to enjoy forevermore. That will give us wisdom to follow you and walk in your light. In Jesus' name, amen.